Okay, so we got this in the other day. This is actually one of our team members' cars. Dustin is the driver. Got that TE logo painted. Very clean paint job. But other than that, this is the Arrma Limitless converted over to a different chassis, different platform pretty much, but same wheelbase-ish, same shocks. So today we're going to be, building the shocks, and I'll show you guys how we do it. So let's get straight into it. Alright, so to take them off, we're going to need this bolt here. There is a set screw bolt down there, and the little pin that slides out. That is for the front right here, and the same thing for the rear. So we're going to go ahead and show you how we get that done. Alright, so for this part, when you do loosen up these little bolts, the screws technically that hold the pin down, I typically get like a razor or a flathead if you have a skinny enough one. This little end point right here, you could actually try to get between there and then just pry it out a little bit. So I might need a little razor. Yeah, let's try to use a razor. Let's try some scissors. These body scissors here, because they're a little bit more fine, and grab the outsides and pinch it forward and see what it does. There you go, just like that. So as you see here, kind of slides out. That's what it looks like right there. So that holds it. It's like a bolt that goes through, and then right here, as you can sort of see, it has a little indent, so it's kind of milled out so that the screw kind of sits right in there and holds it from moving anywhere. So let's do the rest. Right. Alright, from here, you're going to want to watch out, because when you do take this part off, when you slide the shock out, there is a little pivot ball inside, and you really don't want to lose that one. So let's go ahead and take it off and show you. So you want to hold this top together, pull it out, and it should just pop right out just like that. And as you see, there's the little pivot ball right there. Let's go ahead and do all the rest. Alright, let's start with the fronts. So the fronts here, I know they do need a little bit of work. We're gonna get some new oil in there and change the height of it a little bit, and I'll be showing you how to do that. So to take the spring off, that's the first thing that you want to do. You gotta pinch this bottom part and then pull it up, and then you can kind of see how it separates right there. But to make it a little bit easier, just kind of grab the top and thread it all the way up, as if you were decreasing the tension of the spring, technically lowering the car, as you would say. But you want to bring it all the way up just to make it a little bit easier on yourself. Fairly snug right there. Then again, you can pull it, so now you have a little bit of room. Kind of gives you some room there to play with. Pull it up, down until it's off of the actual tie rod right there, and then push it. And when you push it to this point, it won't be able to snap in anymore. And then you could go ahead and grab it from this side, kind of pull it out and push at the same time. It's kind of like got a little bit of finesse in there, but you kind of gotta work your way through, and then eventually it'll pop off. So now this is the shock cup at the bottom, the spring retainer, spring, and now you have your shock itself. So let's go ahead and do that to the other one. Alright, Now that we got the other one undone, we could go ahead and take apart the shock body. So this one doesn't have flat spots at the bottom here. Sometimes they give you little flat spots. You grab it with some pliers and then you could unscrew the top, as you see the aluminum body versus the plastic top. But this one does give you a few flat spots on the top here. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and screw this back down to get it out of the way, because we don't want to damage that. So let's go ahead and do that for this one and the other one. Alright. Gave myself just enough room to sort of get some pliers or channel locks in there to grab these little flat spots here, as you could kind of see. Not really. But yeah, there are flat spots on the top of the shock body. Okay, now we got them threaded down enough to kind of give us some space there to get some channel locks in. Grabbed a pair of channel locks that we have. Put it right on one of the flat spots here, so it should line up with the flat spot on the other side. Grab it there. Now from here you want to loosen up the cap. You can try to do it by hand. Often you might be able to. There are two flat spots on the outsides here, one here and one on that side. You could grab it with pliers if you prefer to do that, or if you have big enough ones. I don't suggest grabbing the top here. Some people do. I've done it a couple times, but you do have a higher chance of kind of breaking the top, breaking the ear off. For this canare,
What did he say?
for this specific scenario, I wouldn't grab a tool and throw it in there either to kind of bend it, because you could wear down the ball, just kind of break something. So from here, I actually do have the Techno shock tool holder thing from here. It's actually a 17mm wheel wrench as well, but this is exactly what that slit is for, is you kind of slide it right into there. And then from there, you should be able to loosen it up. Then once you get it cracked open, you're good from there. You don't need to use the tool anymore. So let's hold the bottom, hold the top, unscrew it right here. Alrighty. There's the bleeder right there. There's a little bleeder cap. It's actually got pressure on it because, you know, it was rebuilt. So let's go ahead and grab any jar or something. I just cut up a water bottle, put the old oil in there, and you always want to drain it out as much as you can. The more you drain it, the better the fluid will be when you put the new fluid in there. So I'm going to go ahead and grab a rag, because I forgot to grab a rag to put the shocks on while we're waiting to do the others. So, 1 second.
One eternity later.
Alright, now this build is specifically for drag racing, so there's going to be different settings for off-road, racing in general, like circuit racing, different types of driving. But for this specific car, I do know that the setting has to be a little bit lower. On this one, typically you don't want your car like at rally height or anything really too high. So as for full travel, we kind of want to lower it a little bit. Not a whole lot, but just a decent amount based on the level of the car is where you want to kind of get it to. Now you can adjust it by this. You kind of get the spring pressure higher or lower just to adjust the ride height, but that's more for fine tuning. So what you really want to do is you want to limit the shock from going all the way out, so that when you put it on the car, it's not so tall and it sits a little bit lower. So the way to do that is you do have to take this off, or you could take off this bolt on the inside. I happen to have this tool here. This is also a Techno tool. This little slots right here are for the shock shafts. You can throw it in there, a big one, 4.0, and you pinch it. That way it doesn't really make a mark or anything. Now some people do like to put a towel or something in there as well. Really, they don't mark it up that bad. Now if you are going to use pliers, they do have the teeth. You could try to use the flat spot, but typically they'll kind of rotate in there. It's a harder time, but you can use pliers as well. I would suggest using maybe like a paper towel or something to put in there first and then pinch it. That way you don't scar it up. But from here, you know, with this tool, it makes it a little bit easier. And you just kind of hold it pretty tightly, and then you loosen up this rod end. Should be able to do it by hand. If not, you could of course grab a pair of pliers, grab the flat spot of it, and then of course turn it over. So let's go ahead and do so. Alright, got the first one off. Release this. See? No marking, scarring, or anything. And the reason why you do want to make sure that you don't scar it up is when you go up, typically it won't ever travel that far, but if so, if you ever have a build or some, you know, shock that does go up that far, or if you hold it from up here, there's O-rings inside of here, and you really don't want to scar them up or just kind of make the whole travel not smooth. Right now it's very smooth. They're new, but if you do scar it up, it could potentially stop and then jerk itself forward or backwards, and just doesn't work very well at all. So you have to typically get a new shaft, and just we don't want to spend too much money doing that, making mistakes. So from here, to lower it, we're going to use fuel tubing, but I'm going to go ahead and push this all the way up, and as you see, the piston goes to the top here, and go ahead and grab that. Like I said, it is a little oily, it gets a little messy. I'm going to flip that upside down and then put this piston at the bottom there, and we're going to go ahead and do that for all of the rest of them. Alright, so we got them all off. The rears, as you could see, are a bit bigger than the fronts. So we have line up the bottom there, kind of get as close as I can for you. So that's the rears and the fronts right there. Rear, front. Just to clarify the difference between the two. Now, if they are older shocks, I would take the bottoms apart right here. Kind of unscrew it from here. Let's see, let's move this part up. Let's unscrew it from the bottom. Now this is if they're older shocks, or if they're just blown out and I feel they need a full rebuild. You take this off, and underneath this plastic piece here, there's an O-ring, and then there should be another plastic piece underneath. But as you see, there's actually still grease inside of there. It's kind of hard to see. But yeah, there's some grease inside of there, and it's brand new, so pretty much you don't really need to rebuild it. There's no scarring on this plastic. The O-ring seems intact fully and have grease on it already. So we're gonna go ahead and throw this back together. And like I said, they feel really smooth. If your shock doesn't feel smooth without, you know, any oil or any pressure in it, basically apart with the shaft just inside of it, if it does not feel smooth, I would recommend taking apart the bottom here and replacing the O-rings, or just check them out. Maybe they're just worn down. You might be able to clean them up. Maybe there's some dirt in there, and you could clear it out and then re-oil it up and then get it in there, and then it's back to smooth again. Alright, so for limiting it up, it's basically restricting the amount of travel down that it has so that you lower the car. We're going to be using some fuel tubing. It's very common. A lot of people use fuel tubing. Some people like to use metal spacers, something the diameter of this, so it's nice and snug and it's not moving around anywhere. But we're going to use fuel tubing. It's very common, like I said. So adjusting where you want it, how much you want to take off, is all kind of by guess. So when you have the shock on the car, so say the shock is on the car and your car sits maybe 20 millimeters off the ground and you want it to sit a little bit lower, so you push down the car, and you typically want to get like a measuring tool, maybe a calipers, or let's say a ruler or something, even if you have, and you measure down kind of exactly how much you want from where the top is. So you measure the top, say it's 20, and then you want to go down and it ends up being 15, so you know that's 5 millimeters. So you basically want to grab your tool or whatever it is. Typically millimeters in RC cars is very standard, so we're just going to go by millimeters, and you pretty much lower it from there. Now I measured this car, and it's going to be somewhere between that range. So what you really want to do is you want to get it as close as you can, and then from there you want to make both of them even. So right now I'm going to be doing the front, so I'm going to make them both pretty close as I can to 5. So we're going to go ahead and do that. And of course I just cut it with scissors. That's just, you know, just cut it with scissors. You could cut it with a blade, get it a little bit more precise, and then you cut it, roll it down, make sure that it's even. But I try to do my best with the scissors we have here. So here is part number 1. Nice and snug inside of there. Let's see if she's too big or too small. Alright, so it fits in there pretty well. It's crunched down a little bit, but you do want that pressure, because when it does, if it does bottom out, it does shrink just a little bit. But the most important part is you want both of them to be nearly exactly the same. So that's one, and we're going to go ahead and grab the other one. Alright, so I made a little snip here. Right there is where you want to cut it. So you kind of want to line it up. You don't want it all crooked, left, right. I mean, up and down is kind of side. But you want to get it as straight as you possibly can through the entire cut. So there's a whole cut there. There's another piece. Stand them up next to each other. Get them a general length. They're pretty close to each other. So here's the second one. We'll see how snug that one fits inside of here. These are calipers that I'm using. I used a little set screw to kind of tighten it up. That way it doesn't move too much. Let's see here. Yeah, see, so this one's just a tad bit bigger, so I'm going to go ahead and try to trim some off of this one. Alright, I can tell the pressure is going to be a little bit more, so we're going to go ahead and try to trim it. Pinch it, and trim just a little bit off. So it's always good when you get a cut and you get a full circle. That's how you know you cut it fairly evenly. And let's go ahead and try to measure it from here. Oh, look at that. Fits right in, a little bit of pressure just like the other one. So that's how I know they're pretty close in size. So that's going to be 1 and 2 for the front. So now from here, what you're going to want to go ahead and do is, this one is a little bit thicker of fuel tubing. This is for the nitro cars. It's a little bit wider in diameter on the inside than the standard one. I forget the exact millimeters, but it's pretty close to fitting on the shaft of the Arrma shafts. So we go ahead and put it on there, and it fits nice and snug. Just kind of, I like to thread it over the threads, that way it doesn't pinch or grab the actual fuel tubing and rip it. And then from here, it's got the oil on it already, and it should just slide all the way down. So we're got one there, and let's go ahead and show you exactly what the difference is. So this is the these are the fronts. So the front bodies are right here. So if you put this back in there, just kind of line up the hole, push it down, it pops through, pull it through. And then now if I show you the difference between this one and that one, so this is stock. Go ahead and line it up again, push down, pull it through. Let's go ahead and wipe my hands off a little bit. So without the tie rod on, the tie rod's right here, without these on, without anything put together, you could already tell a difference. If I line up the tops right there, that is the difference right there. So pretty much it's 5 millimeters difference, and then that's full extension. So if I were to pull this down, it doesn't go anymore, pull this down, it doesn't go anymore. That is the full extension that you get out of it. Now the difference that this does make, like I said, it lowers your car, but now you do have to take into consideration, now lowering it, there is less distance right here, so there's always going to be more spring pressure. So when there's more spring pressure, it's going to be a little bit more bouncy, a little bit more reactive in theory. So you want to make sure you have the right spring rate for what kind of height, and then of course oil that you have for that. Now the more springy it is, I would suggest, what I would recommend is just a little bit heavier oil, but it all depends on what size bore you have, what piston holes you run, and all that good stuff. So we're going to go ahead and get that done. We're going to do the other one. So throw this one back out, pull it out, get this over it, thread it. Let's get this on. Alright, and pull it all the way to the top, and throw it back in. There we are. And now when you line them up together, they should be fairly close to each other. Let's see. Boom. They look pretty even. So that's the front, and then the rear, we're going to go ahead and do that now. Alright, so now we got the rears done. Let's go ahead and try to measure them up. They look the same. So pull them all the way down. They look just about the same. Different angles, of course, it's kind of hard to see which angle it is. But from here, we are going to thread back on the tie rods. Now there's a specific measurement or number that you want to look at when you measure these back. Well, when you thread them back on. So I'm going to do the fronts first. So same thing, hold it in here. Now holding it in here is going to be a lot closer, so there's a lot less room, but it still happens to be just enough to use the tool. The rear is going to be a little bit easier. But for the fronts, these are all the same, so front and rear, it's okay if you mix them up. They're all the same exact measurement and everything. So get it started on the thread, and it should center itself out. Make sure you don't kind of cross thread it. It's a little bit hard to do with plastic, but just kind of get it as straight as you can. Hold the tool tight, whatever you're using. If you're using pliers, or if you're using whatever you're using to hold it, just hold it nice and tight. So now get it just right about there to the end of the threads. Loosen it up, and we're gonna go ahead and do the other one, and I'll show you what to look out for when you're putting these back on. A lot of people tend to put them right back on and skip a step, a very important step, and often overlook it. So let's go ahead and get this one started, and I'll explain to you exactly why it is very important at this step. Getting pretty close there. Alright, so I got both of the fronts on. So from here, I would really suggest using calipers, or I mean, I guess you could try to use mics or something, or a ruler. If you don't have these, get a ruler. It's a little bit harder to do, but I have these for the video and this is kind of just what I use. So let's go ahead and use them. So make sure it zeros a few times and you measure it out from the bottom of the shock body to the top of the tie rod end. So there's a flat spot there and a flat spot there. Just want to make sure this length, because the length from here to the end of the tie rod should be nearly about the same. I mean, they're just molded. For more accurate, you kind of measure the whole thing when you're done. But when you're just threading them on, you want to make sure that they're pretty even. Pretty good amount of snug as well. So let's see. Pull it all the way out, get good tension on there. So the bottom here to the bottom there. As you see, it's about, let's see, trying to get a good number here. 10.42, 10.4, so about 10.4. Let's see, pull this one. Same thing. Right here. Remember, you want to pull it out. I'm just doing that a couple times to make sure it's all the way out. Alright, so this one's at 10.34. So we want to be at 10.4 to get it as close as we can. So this one's got to unthread just a little bit. So we're going to go ahead and grab this tool again. Throw her back on there. Pinch it nice and tight. And unthread it just a little bit. See where that brought us right there. .38, and it's pretty snug, like not too much pressure, so we're almost there. We want to get it as close as we can to 10.4. Let's unthread it just a little bit more. Okay, come on. Might have threaded it a little bit too much. Yeah. Let's see. Nope, 10.4 right there. 10.39, 10.4. So it's right around there. And you could always, of course, look at it, double check it with your eyeball again, that they're just about the same length. And there we are. So now we have the fronts done, and we're going to duplicate the same action on the rear. So we're going to go ahead and do that right now. Alright, now we're going to do the oil. We're going to fill it up and show you how to get that done. Let's make sure I get the right tools here. We are going to need a 1.5 wrench for this as well, and I'll show you when that comes into play pretty quickly here. So we're going to use associated oil here, specific to this drag setup. And I'm going to go ahead and make sure that this all the way down and start filling it up. So for these shocks, you want to fill it up all the way to the top, just about level. Can't really see too much, but the oil is just about level on the top there. And then what you want to do is, as you have it all the way down, you want to go up pretty slowly. But consistently. You want to have a consistent pace all the way up through, all the way till it bottoms out right there. No more room left. Excuse me. And then you want to go all the way back down, but slowly and consistently. As you can see, there's a giant bubble there. There'll be all the air bubbles will come to the top. Bring it all the way back down. And pull it all the way down. Kind of hard to see, but there are the bubbles in there coming up to the top. And the space underneath the piston, now that we put a little the fuel tubing spacer in there, that is the exact gap. So the oil is not at the top again. So you want to do that once, get all the bubbles down, and then you want to fill the rest up to the top. Try to be as clean as you can, and then you want to go ahead and do the same process over one more time. All the way up very slowly. There we are. And then back down slowly but consistently. And this exact process right here that we're on is just about the same for every shock. Of course, some people build them a little bit differently, but the basic process is exactly this right here. Let's see. Alright. Now we're going to go ahead and we're going to grab the cap and we're going to put it on there gently. Got to line up the threads. And the oil is going to start draining from here. So what I like to do is I like to loosen it until I feel the threads grab so it falls in place right there. And then just slowly start tightening it up. And you'll see the oil is starting to leak out the sides. This is along the edge right here. That is completely normal. You, as a matter of fact, you want that. So let's see. Here. And I'm just pinching the bottom of the shock body and tightening this by hand. And what I like to do with these, it's a different process. Everybody does it a little bit differently, but what I like to do is once I tighten it down, I grab it, I loosen it up again. That's a half turn from this being on that side, that's a half turn, one full turn, and that's when it gets fairly loose. Then, if it drags a little bit more, I go up again real smoothly. This one I go all the way. And there will be pressure holding it down. See, like it's going to want to go that way. Just to see if we could get a little bit more oil out from this way. Hold the pressure down. This is so you can see it here. I'm holding the shock down as I'm going to try to tighten it up a little bit more. And more oil will come out. Let's see all the oil coming in and out right there. Get it nice and snug. And then it will have that load, that preload come out. And that is a good sign. Let's see, I try to get it as clean as I can. Alright. Let's see here. This oil gets everywhere. When you do these shocks, or shocks in general, oil is going to get everywhere. So now, there's this little set screw right here. So this is what they call a bleeder screw. You want it all the way down, and then you want to take this and you want to loosen it up. I usually don't take it out all the way unless you have to, but you loosen it up and you'll feel like you slowly put pressure down. Like I'm going to use a table, well, it's just on the rag, but you slowly put pressure down and you'll feel the pressure move the screw out. So you're unscrewing it, getting it loose just to the end of it. And pull it out right about there, just where you could kind of bend it a little bit, just at the tip of threading in, and then slowly go down. You loosen it up if you need to more. Slowly but consistently go down. Then usually I go down and leave about 2 millimeters before the bottom of the tie rod hits the bottom of the shock. So in this case, not much came out, so I'm going to go ahead and pull it out completely and see. I'm going to go a little bit more. Yes, some of it came out. And then go ahead and thread it back in at leaving about 2 millimeters at the bottom. Try to hold it there for you. See, about 2 mils, and you should get a little bit of preload. Not a whole lot where it extends the whole shock, but just a little bit of preload. That way you always have that reactive shock. So now that's there. And then what you want to do is you want to go ahead from this point is grab your channel locks, pliers, whatever you're using again. Grab this here, line it back up on the flat parts just like we did at the beginning. And get that nice and snug. Not too tight, you don't want to strip it out. It is metal to plastic, so you can strip it out. As you can see, there's oil right there. And what I usually use, I use a starting fluid or brake cleaner. But the brake cleaner, you do want to use a non-chlorinated one because it does eat the plastic. But I'm going to go ahead and grab that, clean this up, and we're going to finish the rest. Alright, now that we have them all built, let's go ahead and get them back on the car.